On this week's Intelligence, as a dump stat, Rule of Thule retards his terminology. Grift Morgan is tired of effective communication. Old school gamer skips making a point on skipping rolls. And Nerdcognito can't see past their own shtick. Scutifer Mike brags about killing a core part of his game. That's right, folks. It's once again Monday. This is Driving and Dragons. I'm your host, Daniel, and I'm here to overreact to all the dumbest takes in the TTRPG world this week. Take a second to smash the like, share, and subscribe buttons faster than some of these thin skins hit the block button, because it really helps out. Guess what? To celebrate hitting 1,000 subs, a goal that is only 90 people away, I'm going to be giving away the first cars on the channel. Yes, this channel has always had the goal of restoring cars to donate to others in the TTRPG community in need. And while I am still a long way away from that particular milestone, we're all gamers here. And we all like minis, even if we don't actually use them in play. So I have a buddy with a high-resolution professional-grade 3D resin printer, and I'm working to get some minis of my own car featured here on the channel to give away to some of you guys when the magic number gets hit. I'll randomly select from my public subscribers, and I'll add additional chances for members and patrons. Then I'll announce it here on the channel and send you your very own Driving and Dragons machine. I wonder if I can make the brakes changeable. For those of you who want more than just mockery of our tendency to take gaming too seriously, check out my other stuff like You're Doing It Wrong series on better play at the table or my 7 keys to effective TTRPG design. Let's get down to business. I hope you have your beverage of choice and your BC headache powder ready. We kick things off with 1/3 of the 3-headed, no-brained monster that rules over the BroSR, Rule of Thule. Thule is one of the authors of Winning Secrets, and perhaps the most indoctrinated Jeffro leg humper since B-dubs. So you know what to expect. One true wayism, gaslighting about the proper way to play D&D, and claiming credit that is in no way earned or deserved. Well, Thule sets the tone for us this week, as some of the folks on here present gripes about terminology. Many balk at Braunstein, but campaign and role-playing game have degraded beyond all utility. A real campaign is a Braunstein model with Blackmore as the first example. Except that Blackmore predates D&D and was later changed from its Braunstein roots into a campaign setting more in line with what Gary Gygax envisioned for D&D. But that aside, this is just more idiotic claptrap from the BroSR, who several years after discovering the only right way to play D&D, suddenly changed their minds and decided that Braunstein was the only right way to play D&D. Of course, in their back and forth with the comically litigious Grift Morgan, more on him later, it was determined that they don't actually run Braunsteins, just something that somewhat resembles them. So I guess it is no wonder that terms like degrade so poorly for the bros, because they just make up the definitions as they go. And when they change them, they act like the new definition is the same one that they were using the whole time. Problem for them is that the internet is forever, and their bullshit is on full display for everyone for eternity. Campaign and role-playing are terms divorced from Braunstein. Braunstein is a playstyle, not a campaign. Role-playing is a genre of gaming. Braunstein is simply a subset of that genre, a subset that was largely discarded as inferior decades ago. Rule of Thule is the Jehovah's Witness that shoves his foot in your front door to shower you with heresies that were debunked centuries ago, and he is just as annoying. Speaking of people who struggle with words, we have Grift Morgan. Now, old Grift is best known for jumping into game designers' comment threads to say, this game is so much better, while neglecting to mention the game he is saying he found so much better happens to be associated with his company, and he's also known pretty well for threatening frivolous lawsuits that have absolutely no merit for people saying Braunstein. Seriously, you say Braunstein 3 times in a mirror and he shows up with a cease and desist letter. He's also pretty well known for backfooting RPG Pundit and I in a confrontation with Jeff Rowe Johnson by taking his ball and running home on the Dundermoose show. Now, he's sick of hearing quote-unquote made-up terms for everything, like Mega Dungeon. He never heard the designer of the first Mega Dungeon call it that. It was just a dungeon. Well, yeah, numbnuts, that's how new terminology works. You have a style of a thing that has a more narrow set of parameters, so you assign it a more descriptive term to make conversation easier. It's called human language. And seriously, Mega Dungeon, you're about 45 years late complaining about that particular term there, Chief. Almost as late as you are about trying to frivolously trademark the word Bronstein. I wonder why it is that old Griff is suddenly posting about how Tannisborg was not called a mega dungeon and people, till people started identifying it as the first one to meet the criteria. Maybe it's because he's involved with a product that revisits Tannisborg and he's just trying to get people talking about it while pretending to just want to talk about terminology in TTRPGs. I don't know. All I know is that you better just say automobile, because Griff is sick of all these made-up terms like car, truck, sedan, and roadster. Just shill your game, man. Quit trying to trick people into finding it. Maybe if you didn't introduce yourself as, "Hi, I'm Griff and I'm suing you because you said D20, you wouldn't have to hide your involvement in projects from potential customers." Kind of like how I would never have to try and trick people into talking about Corvid Codex Volume 1. Since it is a product I'm proud of and it was created by some of the very best in the old school gaming hobby has to offer, I don't have to slide into some other writer's comments and say, "Your book was kind of crap, but I recently read Corvid Codex and it was great. Don't say crow or I'll sue." But you don't have to take my word for it either. You can get your own copy of Corvid Codex Volume 1 on Lulu in paperback or ebook with the links in the description. And Patty isn't pussyfooting around hiding his White Dwarf summer merch either. Though I'm sure his wife may really wish he did, or at least she might wish that he, wear some pants with his Hawaiian button down or his gobsmack tee. Patty already raised $100 for Preborn, and if you go grab some gear yourself, you'll add to the pot. Corvid Codex of White Dwarf Summer, 18 intelligence purchases for the discerning gamer. What isn't an 18 intelligence take is what Old School Gamer had to say about rolling dice. Guys, can we please get off this absolutist nonsense? If you're making a hardline black or white statement about the running of the game, chances are you are also operating with an intelligence score lower than 6 at that moment. Things like skipping a roll is scripting the game out of the session. Old School Gamer was replying to a comment that said if a PC makes a very persuasive argument, sometimes a roll isn't needed because a nat 1 shouldn't invalidate a point that really shouldn't be objected to. And Old School Gamer thinks this is scripting the outcome. Nobody with any brains agrees with him on that. He's only saying it because in the shadow of the current Brendan Lee Mulligan controversy, it is en vogue in the OSR circles to say that rolls should never be skipped. This is stupid. You know what else? Who else thought that this was stupid? Gary Gygax thought this was stupid. He said so even in his own books and in the core rule books. And virtually every other respected TTRPG designer does as well. Sure, there may still be a reason out there to call for a roll when the outcome isn't in question, but in general, not calling for a roll when doing so makes sense is simply good GMing. But that's kind of what I expect from a guy who streams with a cringy anime AI waifu that's been prompted to tell him how great he is all the time. While we are on the topic of classic gaming, OSR, old school, whatever you want to call it, personalities that just cannot set aside their tribalism even when they know they're spewing garbage, Nerdcognito did it again. RD and crew were so hard set on attacking the Sparkle Troll Critical Role crowd and never, ever giving them any credit when it's due that they can't even applaud when they do something Nerdcognito has been screaming for years. Like many old school outlets, Nerdcognito often pipes in with lamentations about how modern D&D has taken all the stakes out of playing. There are no more consequences. Everybody just gets a Deus Ex Machina bailout or a 500 gold resurrection 5 minutes after somehow failing their 47th death save. So when Brendan Lee Mulligan and the posers over at Critical Role say that they're homebrewing away most of 5e's resurrection mechanics next season, you would think that they might begrudgingly give them some kudos on this. But no, the mental midgets over at Nerdcognito must remind us that they don't really play and that Critical Role is scripted, while accusing them of bending the system to fit their narrative. Are you shitting me? They homebrew out the more egregious death-cheapening magic, one of the chief complaints about how 5e waters down the game, and you complain about that. Seriously, if you can't call your side out when they do wrong and give props to the other when they do good, you have completely lost your way. Time to get your own house in order instead of complaining that they threw a bucket of water on their burning abode. But they aren't the only people hypocritically championing the cheap death on the TSR Homer side of the equation. Scutifer Mike, the BroSR backbencher who looks like a 12-year-old in his daddy's suit jacket and tie, had a grand announcement about his multi-character domain play game. Running multiple PCs and barons and gods has completely desensitized his players to death in game. The campaign moves forward. Well, first off, the campaign moves forward even when a player's only PC dies. That's kind of how campaigns work. However, if your characters treat their characters dying like they treat getting a bad attack roll, then you have missed the entire point of playing TTRPGs. Just hang it up, pull out your little Warhammer toys and your plastic soldiers and play a war game. Because I stripped all emotional investment out of my game from my players is not a brag. What made role-playing games different was that you get invested in the story and character death helps pay off on that investment the same way it does in a good book. It's like Tolkien versus that hack George Martin. When Boromir dies, or when you think Gandalf dies, it carries weight, and it sticks with you, and you remember it. That fantasy world you are in stops spinning for a moment, and you get a payoff for caring about those characters. When George Martin kills people randomly for virtually no reason, you get desensitized quick, and you no longer care when characters die, because you have learned not to care about them, and therefore lose the ability to care about the story or the world. So yeah, apparently, winning secrets are basically shouting your failures at the top of your lungs as if they're somehow something to be proud of. That's about all I can take for this week, guys. Be on the lookout for another 7 Keys bonus tip this week, and maybe even a D&D Reacts. I'll see you guys next time.